to Crypto Clothesline. We're glad to be here with you. Hanging out the crypto laundry. Getting all the crypto info for you. Crypto Clothesline.
Abheeti, hello. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
You look so much better than you did this morning.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I washed my hair, shower. It's just nothing like it.
And the kids are in bed, are they?
The kids are not in bed. It's 6 p.m.
Oh, that's right. I'm just like, just a second. Can you hold on? Atlantis, go to bed. That just reminded me.
Please don't cut that out of the recording.
Oh, it's 8 o'clock and I just remembered, oh God, she's got school tomorrow and I'm just sitting here doing a bloody interview thing. Anyway, so awesome. I'm so glad that you're coming tomorrow night. I'm so excited to see you and I am fully pumped to be able to touch your skin.
Oh, darling.
Just have a cuddle. Sounds wrong. I know.
I was going to say, taken in the wrong context, that could be a little touchy.
It is, and I'm sorry to our listeners, but because it's audio, you don't have to imagine anything. Just imagine our mouths moving, and oh my God, just the next level. This week has been really interesting. It's been really interesting for you because you've had a lot of issues with, and can I just say, it's Virgin. And you would think Virgin are accepting crypto to go to the moon for space flights. And if you could buy your flights with crypto, you'd be on the most expensive first-class trip ever. But Virgin has, he's just, I don't know, I'm a bit disappointed. I'm a bit disappointed with the way that things have panned out.
Well, did you drop Dick an email?
I didn't drop Dick an email. You know what? I drop a lot of Dick's emails and he just wasn't on the list today.
You told me yesterday you were going to write to Mr. Branson and let him know that your girlfriend got bumped off a flight because she wasn't VIP enough.
Yeah, I was going to do that, and unfortunately, you know what? I'm sorry. I will do that tonight. I'll say how disappointed I am with Dicko.
I'm sure he'll be devastated.
But I am glad that you're going to come tomorrow. After everything we've been through, particularly you and your beloved children who are waiting to come and visit my daughter.
I think Archer's one of the key attractions too, don't forget. The 18-month-old, the muffin-eating, cake-stealing 18-month-old that makes my children giggle at no end.
You know, a psychic told me, I love psychics, which actually, when it comes down to intuition, that's a really good intro to today's guest that we have who is coming on, who's talking about her peace coin. So I really love psychics and I love intuition, and that is how I choose some, obviously not all because I'm also a logic person, of my cryptos. You know, there's a gut feeling, you know, you've got a good sense of things. But anyway, a psychic told me that my son, we were going to name my son Jupiter. And it turns out when we went to see a psychic that the name that we're going to choose is not appropriate because he's going to be a very big boy, potentially obese. And I was like, oh, I don't think Jupiter's going to suit this kid. So we renamed and came up with a better name. So he is very big, and that's what I wanted to get to. He's a big boy. He's 18 months old. He breaks into the freezer. He breaks into every single cupboard that has food in it, and it's really hard for me. And the psychic was so good. I can't get over it.
I've got to break a little bit of bad news to you. My son's nearly turning 13. He's on the brink, and he eats probably 3 times as much as anyone else in the house right now.
What, and he's just eaten like that his whole life?
No, just recently. You might have to get a couple of freezers is what I'm thinking.
Great. Okay, so I was actually thinking I'm going to be the mum who locks the freezer. So moving right along.
Well, I have had a big week, been bumped off. It makes me think of that 70s song, Lady Bump. I have to Google it. We'll put it in the show notes, Lady Bump.
Yeah.
Well, I've been lady bumped off a standby flight for the Virgin, and, it's been a long and tedious time.
It has, because you decided that you were going to go to the airport, right? You went to the airport the first time?
5 a.m.
At 5 a.m. you got to the airport, and when you were at the airport, they said, no, you're not getting on this flight, lady. You are not Dickie's friend.
That's the one. So then we came home and they said, okay, we'll get you on tomorrow's flight. There are 19 places. And my dear friend, who's really been trying very hard to get me on the flight, because she's the virgin girl who, is getting me on at mates rate. And morning's flight was full. Today's lunchtime flight was full. Tonight's flight, it's the red eye. I was about to take 3 children on a midnight horror across the Nullarbor in the air.
Oh, and God.
That was full as well. Anyway, I'm catching a flight tomorrow. It's costing me millions of Bitcoin, but that's okay because I'm coming to see you people.
Thank you, Abheeti. That means a lot. Also, not as logical as I would have hoped it would be. Quick.
Did you know, Abheeti? Once I heard that you missed a flight, I was crying.
Oh, Lantus.
I was really looking forward.
I'm not going to promise anything because I'm not sure what's going to happen from 1 minute to the next. But
and I heard Amber was really excited.
She was very excited. She was so excited she stepped on a bee. Now she has to hop everywhere. She can't walk. She's a hopper. And she's getting a sore leg because she's had to hop everywhere because her brothers are not being very kind.
Okay, go to bed.
Okay.
Let's get positive, okay? I know you're missing some flights. You've missed 3 in 24 hours. So this interview today is the most positive, sweetest, and almost like cheesy interview we've done. It's almost like she's a saint. This woman she's got 18 years in finance, yet she's a Buddhist. And she's creating this coin, and it's all about humans and community getting together. And I'm pretty impressed. And I say that every week I'm pretty impressed, but I'm pretty impressed with anyone who has intentions that have action behind them.
I must say that Sophie is just one of the most erudite, well-spoken, vocabularized women that I've ever met. I love to listen to her. She is able to talk about everything from yoga positions to meditation to finance to, indices on the cryptocurrency market. She's an absolute scream. Incredibly humble, incredibly generous and gifted. And yeah, I'm so excited that she's come onto our show as well and that she's become our friend.
She has. We're like besties now. It's pretty cool. Let's have a listen.
Yay!
Crypto Clothesline.
Abheeti, hello.
Hello. Hello.
So much better than you did this morning.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I washed my hair, shower. It's just nothing like it.
The kids are in bed, are they?
The kids are not in bed. It's 6 a.m.
Oh, that's right. I'm just like, just a second. Can you hold on? Atlantis, go to bed.
Please don't cut that out of the recording.
Oh, it's 8 o'clock and I just remembered, oh God, she's got school sitting here doing a bloody interview thing. Anyway, so I'm so glad that you're coming tomorrow night. I'm so excited to see you and really pumped to be able to in.
Oh, darling.
Just have a cuddle. Sound wrong.
I was going to say, taken in the wrong context, that could be a little touchy.
It is, and I'm sorry to our listeners, but because it's audio, you don't have anything. Just imagine moving on. Just the next level. This week has been really interesting. It's been really interesting for you because you've had a lot of issues with, and can I just say, it's Virgin. And you would think Virgin are accepting crypto to go to the moon for space flights. And if you could buy your flights with crypto, you'd be on a first class trip ever. But Virgin has, he's just, I don't know, I'm a bit disappointed. I'm a bit disappointed with the way that things have panned out.
Well, did you drop dick?
Didn't drop dick in email. You know what? I drop a lot of emails and I'm on the list today.
You told me yesterday you were going to write to Mr. and let him know that your girlfriend got bumped off a flight because she wasn't VIP enough.
Yeah, I was gonna, and unfortunately, I'm sorry. I will do that tonight. I'll say how disappointed I am with Dicko.
I'm sure he'll be devastated.
But I am glad that you're going to come tomorrow after everything we've been through, particularly you and your beloved children who are waiting to come and visit my daughter.
I think Arch is one of the key attractions too, don't forget. The 18-month-old, the muffin-eating, cake-stealing 18-month-old that makes my children giggle at no end.
You know, a psychic told me, I love psychics, which actually, when it comes down to intuition, that's an intro to today's guest that we have who's coming on, who's talking about her peace coin. So I really love psychics, love intuition, and that is how I choose some, obviously not all because I'm also a logic person, of my cryptos. You know, there's a gut feeling, you know, you've got a good sense of things. But anyway, a psychic told me that my son, we were going to name my son Jupiter. And it turns out when we were a psychic that the name that we use is not appropriate because he's going to be a big boy, potentially obese. And I was like, oh, I don't think Jupiter's going to suit this kid. So we renamed and get a better name. So he is very big, and that's what I wanted to get to. He's a big boy. He's 18 months old. He breaks the freezer. He breaks every single cupboard that has food in it, and it's really hard for me. And the psychic was so good. I can't get over it.
I've got to break a little bit of bad news to you. My son's nearly turning 13. He's on the brink, and he eats probably 3 times anyone else in the house right now.
What, and he's just eaten like that his whole life?
No, just recently. You might have to get a couple of freezers, I'm thinking.
Great. Okay, so I was actually thinking I'm going to be the mum who locks the freezer. So moving right along.
Well, I have had a big week. Yeah, been bumped off. It makes me think of that 70s song, Lady. I have to Google it. We'll put it in the show.
Yeah.
Well, I've been lady bumped off for the Virgin, and it's been a long and tedious time.
It has, because you decided that you were going to go to the airport, right? You went to the airport the first time?
5 a.m.
At 5 a.m. you got to the airport, and when you were at the airport, they said, no, you're not getting on this flight, lady. You are not Dickie's friend.
That's the one. So then we came home and they said, okay, we'll get you a flight. There are 19 places. And my dear friend, who's really been trying very hard to get me on the flight, she's the Virgin girl who, is getting me on at mates rate. And my flight was full. Today's lunchtime flight was full. Tonight's flight, it's the red eye. I was about to take 3 midnight horror across the Nullarbor in the air.
Oh,
and
God.
That was full. Anyway, I'm catching a flight tomorrow. It's costing me millions of Bitcoin, but that's okay because I'm coming to see you people.
Thank you, Abheeti. That means so not as logical as I would have hoped you'd be. Quick.
Once I heard that you missed a flight, I was crying.
Oh, look.
Really looking forward.
I'm not going to promise anything because I'm not sure what's going to happen from 1 minute to the next. But
And I heard Amber was really excited.
she was very excited. She was so excited she stepped on a bee. Now she has to hop everywhere. She can't walk. She's a hopper. And she's getting a sore leg because she's had to hop everywhere because her brothers are not being very kind.
Okay, go. Let's get positive, okay? I know you're missing some flights. You've missed 3 in 24 hours. So this interview today is the most positive, sweetest and easy interview with Saint. This woman she's got 18 years in finance, yet she's a Buddhist. And she's creating this coin, and it's all about humans and community getting together. And I'm pretty impressed, but I'm pretty impressed with anyone who has intentions that have action behind them.
I must say that Sophie is just one of the most erudite, well-spoken, vocabularized women that I've ever met. I love to listen to her. She is able to talk about everything from yoga positions to meditation to finance to indices on the currency market. She's an absolute scream. Incredibly and gifted. And yeah, I'm so excited that she's come onto our show as well and that she's become our friend.
Yes, we're like besties now. That's pretty cool. Let's have a listen.
Yay!
Sophie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Wow, where to start? Relevant information. I have a banking background, but after a divorce and lived 5 years on a really deep and somewhat fulfilling journey, I left that profession. So knowing that at some point I would come back out into the world and, create another career for myself, I really wanted to ask myself, where can I find myself situated? Found the ecosystem for crypto. It's been quite an enjoyable yet perplexing and intriguing space that the different alternative ways that we can conceptualize finance and assets and currencies per se arise in the digital cryptocurrency ecosystem. So that's why I'm here, the interest. So that's an 18-year in banking and finance. And, I also am a healer as well. I offer rake healing and a range of other different modalities, which I was blessed to receive as part of my journey in Bali. So I feel that, the space is ripe and open from a very diverse background. The tree-hugging hippies are just as much as home in this sphere. It loves to be more, I suppose, traditional in their views and ways. It's a vast space.
Do you those tree-hugging hippies, as you called us, them, I don't know, to the mix, because I'd probably say all of the above. Like, I'm really interested in the fact that blockchain, and this came up in another interview with another lady, was she was saying like money and the whole sphere of cryptocurrency is the tip of the iceberg, and that there are wider ranging reach for humankind than that. What's your comments on that? How blockchain can possibly affect the future of humankind?
Sure. I just like to preface it briefly by saying, like a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. And on my part, I have what I would say observational knowledge of the blockchain. I'm not a techno, I'm not a geek, so I don't have programming coding background, but I do have a pretty smart brain about me and a way of, absorbing information. So what I'd just like to say about that is, from the information that I've received and from what I've observed by looking at, the BitBlock's Explorer technology, I think it's at blockchain.info on the internet, and just speaking with people at meetups and hearing how this technology, which has been around for a very long time, will actually come to serve us in ways. So that's what I'm very interested in looking at. I was speaking with someone and she said, well, look, there will be asset registrations that the blockchain properties will go onto it, or other sorts of information that generally is held by centralized parties like governments, etc., will find a use for registering their interest. I think one of the most fun ones that I've seen is where, and I don't quite recall exactly, but there is actually creative people like us who are registering their IP, their intellectual property, their new lines. So that in some way negates the necessity to go through, a large company that, does that for you. So it offers freedom and liberty and choices, which I think is very exciting.
Yeah, there's some fabulous practical examples. Other things we were talking about was the food supply chain. So whereas now we're having to look at all of this and see what are the 13 syllable words in there and what else could be potentially something we're going to, our baby's skin using it. Now there's this full transparency and this ability for full disclosure. We as the consumers aren't feeling quite so riled and tricked by for example, the classic one, fragrance, perfume, all those different words they have for the same, particularly a series of chemicals which are highly cancerous, if there's such a word, carcinogenic.
Well, that's interesting. I've learned something new. I'm not aware of that, but I am aware kind of like financial applications that people can use them for, which I think is very, very exciting, particularly where you have communal rights to property, that type of thing. Communities can actually have extraordinary shareholder listings about, what have. And just thinking about, it's a pretty radical one, and ownership in England, that's all through a government organisation, a court. I could possibly see where shareholders would be able to opt into a system where they could register their blocks of lands without the necessity of it held, a government organisation. It's not to say the government's not useful, but people with easier access to their shareholdings and to have visibility of what that looks like.
Wow, that sounds really exciting. And that, obviously that was an example using the Maori situation, but that could be wide all over the world.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are some free from fear and a lot of external judgment world that much easier. That really also helps to consider to be a really instrumental tool in liberating, humanity from some of the shackles of how we consider interacting with, type and variety. That's kind of like my spiritual connection with this ecosystem. Right. I really enjoy having read the white paper of sort of a philosophical basis for even conceptualizing and, mining Bitcoin in the first place. So I think that there's another place that we as women, men, children can also look to. Sometimes it's actually really interesting to look at what philosophically, socially, energetically has happened in the world to lead to this arising of the cryptocurrency system. And we will see and feel profound dissatisfaction with the system that we've been, very much attuned to using because there was really nothing else. Yes. So, I actually pay homage to people who are very courageous in that way. Myself, I was a little bit of a Bitcoin. In Bali, there are some really cool meetups. We're from all backgrounds, whether you be an economist, whether you be a banker, they're all really labeled. So what are they? beneath it all. We're all human beings who have an interest in seeing, humanity have a fair deal. Ordinary people have, financial enrichment for themselves. And so that really was what piqued my interest. I came from that particular angle. And then I discovered that there was actually the space for greater creativity for ordinary people like us who are creating a whole educational podcast program. This is wonderful. And so, you're very welcome. I was very excited to meet you last week. Yeah. It's like, wow, go for it, sister. We need creatives in this field. And as much as this field has come and I suppose, flourish because of the technological underpinnings that really make it happen, there is also the necessity to have a creative philosophical input that also balances out what I would call, speculative human greed, because that's also arising in this space as well. If you've been into a community room on an ICO, you will see that, some people really have no other interest apart from 10xing their investment or 100xing it or 2000xing it. It's all kind of Lambo talk. So
when you say 10xing your investment, can you explain a little further to our listeners what that might mean? Because it could be crypto speak. I'm thinking about the ICO, or it could also be finance speak. What do you mean when you say 10x?
Just very simply, if I invested $10, I'm going to get 100 back.
Right, so 10 times.
Right, 10 times, 20 times. And, when we see the trajectory of Bitcoin over its life, up to touching 20,000 plus, it's like, wow, working that out, it's phenomenal expansion of original capital, is it not? And so then coming just back to it, sorry.
No, please go ahead. Yeah, I had something to say, but I'll say it after that.
Right. And so for me, from a personal point of view, it's an impulse that I have around currency. So I don't know if listeners are interested in a gentleman by the name of Bernard Lietaer. I mean, you can find his work everywhere on the internet. And he is one of the contributors. That's Lietar, Bernard. I think he's a BIM man.
Okay, yeah.
And he is a co-architect of the euro. And so I was impacted by one of his talks that he gave at a conference around the predominance of yang currencies. And in the way that he explained yang, it's yin and yang. He said that there really is an imbalance, in his opinion, with yang currencies in the world. These are currencies that are designed to be highly competitive.
Yes, the male, the masculine.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And they've been created with that in mind. And there are very few women, actually, as I could see, who have actually entered into that space with the idea to create currencies that really reflect a balanced feminine to transacting. And all currencies hold energy. That's the healer in me speaking. They really do. What we do with the currency is up to us. We can transform that into more loving and nurturing energy. However, it still does hold, in my opinion, the fragment how it was actually generated in the first place. There's no getting away from it. And so I believe what's very exciting in this paradigm shift of human consciousness, people are meditating, people are the connectedness we have as human beings. We would actually like to have currencies which reflect our values.
Ah, that's so interesting. It's like taking a very practical black and white issue like money, you pay for this, you pay for that, and then having that somehow sort of with spirituality, with that connection to the universe sort of sitting under that. I mean, it's a beautiful connection. It's not something that I would easily make, that connection between money and freedom. I mean, there's the obvious one, being able to pay for stuff, which makes you feel free. But in terms of that spiritual freedom and that freedom from those inner demons and those voices and those, I mean, we're getting to more of a meditation conversation here, but it's a fascinating concept, the notion of yin and yang for currency. It's amazing.
Yes, I was very excited, and very clear message for us as a human species. What is this energy for?
Okay.
How do we use it? How is what our dreams and desires are transmitted through this energy? How does that bear fruits when I give to you currency that comes from my heart as a form of generosity, and not just valuing as some kind of a functional transaction. Wow. So functional transactions are what we have in the current system, millions of dollars trillions of dollars in forex markets, being transacted very easily. There's no consciousness of what that represents. And so there is a way for human beings to come back to understanding, what's my impulse? How are my creative impulses and how is my inner being nurtured? In every aspect of my life, I use money. And my point about cryptocurrency is it offers us an opportunity to actually literally create currencies that reflect the values that we have as a community. And the community could be a global community, or in the instance of the Hearts community in Israel, where they created a currency that reflected the needs of the caregivers there, and it became a multi-million-dollar turnover of interest because people were really willing to use it for caregiving and child raising.
Wow. Is that a cryptocurrency, or is that a different, is that a fiat currency?
It is a digital currency. I suspect it's a local currency, but it's been digitized. But what I'm saying is that if we can extrapolate from these types of currencies that work really successfully and see how can that be expanded, to incorporate, the infrastructure we have. In the cryptocurrency ecosystem. So that's what I find very exciting.
That's so exciting. And so on that note, I have some other questions to ask you. I'm making notes as we chat. But can you tell us a little bit about the ICO that you're developing? When we met last week, you were telling me about something very interesting called the Peace Coin. Right, the Peace Coin, yes. And I have to be careful because, Peace Coin is actually registered as a ticker on one of the exchanges that, a friend advised was saying, well, you need to find a new name for it. But let me just give you the backstory. A peace coin is a coin that's created so that ordinary human beings, can have an alternative currency which is built upon certain principles that we probably treasure as a community. Principles of love and practices of love. There's a wide conversation about what that looks like. Yes. Even compassion, nurturing, and healing. These are such far-out concepts that no one would ever consider remotely interesting to connect to the philosophy of a currency. But let me tell you, in the early days, that's actually what currencies were. Currencies were used as a way to give gratitude to the divine. And so we've gone a long way away from that. So, this is perhaps, in my opinion, a way to come back and to approach more of the divine nature create a coin that reflects more of the divine nature of how we as human beings actually do within ourselves desire to operate, but we just don't have other choices available to us. Wow. So could you give me I mean, you're clearly a visionary and you can see things that perhaps others of us that are caught up in the mouse wheel, just staying there and paying our rent and doing what we do, part of us being so big. Community around the interests, the interests that you have. It could be around meditation, it could be around sports, whatever it is, but a community of people who see at some level a commonality. And so what you'll be invited to do is to actually create these events. And in creating these events and having, members within your community participate in them, then you would be attributed access to mining the coins. Wow. Yes, so you cannot do this by yourself because, as a blockchain, you need to register and give, even, names, however that looks, to your members. They do need to be proved. Mm-hmm. So it's all about intent. So it's a new word that an advisor friend of mine gave to me. She said, well, look, proof of intent, Sophie, this is what it's all about. It's about holding the intent to do good in the world by creating activities that are meaningful to your community. There's a wide, vast conversation about what that could look like. Yes. Because I think anything that does good, whether it be to be for your body, for your spirit, education, as long as you have a community, then you have access to mine the coin. And so I feel that it favours those who are in communities is because, there are certain parts of who see themselves more as one. In the West, we tend to be a little bit more individualistic. Yes. But having lived in a developing nation like Indonesia, Bali specifically, there people act as a community to resolve their problems. If there's a financial problem, they come together as a community to aid another. From an anthropological perspective, we see that with different countries. Like there's that general mentality that the Japanese think of a social or a group mentality. So what favors the group, and so the individual tends to step back. And yet in the West, we're more about the me, and the group has kind of got to suck it up. So I wonder some sort of enmeshing, some sort of amalgamation of those two, so that one extreme to the other, it becomes like, yes, I as an individual count and I'm important and I don't always have to adhere to the wishes of the group, but yearning for community that we all have inside. I love it. And so this is the nature of Peace Coin, or whatever, the new evolving name is going to be. It's about asking communities to do good in their world. Peace is an outcome from the actions that we take.
but just to come together and to behave, as a cohesive, mutually giving and receiving, body of people amongst themselves, and then receive the benefits, like you have an interest to mine the coin, receive it according to, the integrity of the mining protocol. And, look, one thing that I also found, and none of this has been proven, so I am here in Perth at the moment looking to see if there are, heart-centered, technologists who might be interested in joining and supporting, an alpha or at least, a wireframe of the potentiality of making this work, is the mobile phone. So in developing nations, they've all got mobile phones.
Yes.
So the idea is to see if we can mine as much as possible, not in the traditional sense. Potentially there'll be off-chain, on-chain types of processes that might enable us to use, mobile phones to take it to that level of accessibility to developing nations.
So in terms of accessibility for mining or accessibility for contacting communities and creating communities?
Mining.
For mining from our phones?
From our phones.
Oh, that's interesting. So we're not looking at a huge room with a computer that's going to heat the whole house on, like as in, the stories of Bitcoin and Ether and what have you.
Well, I don't know if this is possible, but here's the thing. I have a visionary instinct that something is possible that makes it far more accessible to people, as I say, in developing nations who can better afford a phone than mining rig. Yes. I'm sorry. This in life, and I'm just following mine, and intuitively, this one was handed to me. Do I think I really want it? Well, I'm growing into it. It's almost like I'm feeling a degree of comfort in knowing that this could be just one project that I could offer to the world, that could make, a difference to, people of all kind of nations and socioeconomic status, because let's be very honest, there are so many, but I do see that probably could be a natural progression. Probably, I would say, people within this industry who are more heart-centered and conscious human beings who would like to, as a collective or individuals, like to create an exchange where, the profit-making motivation is what potentially might help the thinking, of the Peace Coin project. Do people actually care?
Yes.
People actually care about the source of, the currency that they use? Do they have an interest? Do they have the slightest amount of interest? And what kept coming back to me is actually, yes, they do. More and more people that they create.
I would love for our audience to be able to get in touch with you if they'd like to. Can you tell us and them, and I'll also put this in the show notes afterwards, where is the best place for them to find you when they get in touch with their input?
Okay. So I'm going to actually give a WhatsApp number. And
Okay.
so I think that would be the best way for people to get in contact with me.
Right.
But here's the thing. If people don't win, I would just like people to be honest. Yes. Namaste.
Namaste, Ankete.
She has so much to say, and I just absorb things at a normal human rate, you see.
No, you don't. You're a bit superhuman. Hello, if you're a normal human rate, then I must be like subnormal.
I'm just saying, like, she talked and I was just like...
But that's kind of like an irregular conversation, isn't it? It's like you...
She has so much to say, and I just absorb things at a normal human rate, you see.
No, you don't. You're a bit superhuman. Hello, if you're a normal human rate, then I must be like subnormal.
I'm just saying, like, she talked and I was just like, what? And I was like, oh.
But that's kind of like an irregular conversation, isn't it? It's like you have to decode. You have to code switch between languages. I mean, it might be English, but really what Sophie is talking about is an entirely different sort of, echelon of understanding, really. But having said that, she's also incredibly straightforward, isn't she? And what a beautiful, gentle soul.
She has a way of talk. I think maybe because she's Buddhist, maybe because she's got so much experience, she's got the confidence, she doesn't have any sort of lag. Her brain doesn't question what she's about to say like we do. We have pauses and ums and ahs, whereas she just has a knowing.
What I'm really excited to do is to be able to talk to her perhaps in another interview, because we're living in this period in which there's not a lot of, there's no regulation per se on cryptocurrencies, and there's this formation period, isn't there, where the ATO, the Australian Tax Office and similar bodies are looking for input from people on the ground floor level like us about how to regulate. But I think somebody like Sophie would be just so versed and what's the word, like educated.
She knows what she's talking about. And what's currently lacking with the Australian Tax Office and the Australian Securities Investment Commission, which is ASIC, I think they are struggling starting to understand what cryptocurrencies are, because their whole, I know I'm putting a blanket over the top of them, that they're all under the same umbrella, but I have been dealing with these bodies. I've been dealing with ASIC, and has been an extremely difficult series of communications. And at one stage, I seriously did not think they understood one thing about cryptocurrencies, because they're so focused only on ICOs.
When I had that day with the Perth legal hackers, there was a lawyer there who spoke for a good hour or more. He was really entertaining. But he was basically going through the criteria that defines a share and the criteria that defines a cryptocurrency or an ICO, or, not that I'm calling them the same thing, but he was basically saying that at this point in time there, crypto is heavily regulated in Australia. And these are not his words, but perhaps erroneously so. It's regulated under one umbrella, which there are a whole heap of aspects of that definition which are not relevant to crypto. It would be amazing to have Soph come on board and give us a rundown on how she sees the whole thing unfolding. I
would absolutely love that. And you know what? I welcome anyone who is in the finance industry to come in and have a chat with us, layman style, because I'm seriously confused about exactly what the expectations are from the ATO and ASIC, and I actually think that's because even the ATO and ASIC aren't quite sure about their expectations. It is so new, but the problem is everybody who is expecting these regulations are stressed out. People who have cryptocurrencies are worried about something that doesn't even exist yet, and my belief is never ever worry about something that hasn't yet happened. But it's feeling like impending doom. And it's very difficult to remove yourself from that stress, to think, okay, I've got this much cryptocurrency. And I have to say, I definitely don't have like Ian Bellina style wallets, but they're still very special to me. These things I've been looking at for so long, and not that I don't want to pay tax on them, but I don't want to pay tax that I shouldn't have to pay, because they do not fall under what they're saying they fall under. So definitely a little bit worried about what's about to unfold.
And also because it's impending, the end of the financial year is looming. It's like 3 short months away. And that's a very short space of time to really get a grip on anything realistic. Also because crypto has been around since, 2009 or something, but this is the first year that it's really looming in the headlines in terms of...
What do you do? We talk about, because we pay our kids in crypto. I'm thinking, like, what are they going to do to our kids? How do you tax someone who doesn't have a tax file number?
Well, at the Crypto Ecology meetup, they were talking about the fact that as it stands, the ATO will be taxing whoever buys the initial coin or token, whatever it is. So even if you buy it and gift it to your child, you'll still be liable. Even if it moves off into another wallet, you're still liable for that original amount. So it's kind of crazy.
Abheeti, actually, until tomorrow night, holy moly, I'm going to see you in the flesh. I get to touch you.
Hey, that's, what's her name? Blondie. No, that's so Amy Rose. Where have you been? I'll look it up.
I've been under a rock. Don't judge people's houses.
Okay, in the flesh. I'm going to play it for you now. Are you ready?
Darling, 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 I can't wait to touch you in the flesh.
All right. Bye.
Hello. Amy Rose here to make sure you know all about our upcoming webinars and our online crypto courses. So if you know a newbie, if your best friend has no idea what you're talking about when you say Bitcoin, or your mum is totally confused about why on earth you keep talking about invisible money, send them to our webinars. We cut out the tech talk and deliver a jam-packed session of crypto goodness every fortnight. And you're going to need more. So we've built an online course. It's 10 weeks of video tutorials, complimentary consultations where you can talk to myself or to Abheeti. There's quizzes, access to the closed Facebook group just for students with live videos and support, study guides, all without the tech talk, and it's just put simply for non-tech heads. And this is going to teach you everything you need to know about everything you need to get you started in crypto and to make informed decisions. You're going to learn the importance of security because that is our main focus of the course. And at the end, you're going to feel inspired and enriched and part of a community support network that's there to ensure you continue to feel empowered in this ever-evolving space, something that Abheeti and I didn't have when we started out. We virtually had no one, and all we could do was Google. So you've got this in a package delivered just for you. So check out the comments and the notes of our podcast for all the links. Otherwise, we'll see you next week in the podcast, where at the end, we're probably going to tell you about our course again.
Crypto Clothesline.